welcome to An Evening with Shiza, Shahid. We want to welcome you to Cal State Long Beach, and on behalf of 22 West Media, Beach Pride events, and all of our student media that we have here on with us today, we just want to welcome you and thank you for that insightful conversation that we just had with you.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure to be here.
Now, Shiza, you're a co-founder of the Malala Fund. You're also a technologist, entrepreneur. What else don't you do?
I don't exercise enough. No, I've had the privilege of having multiple careers, and I think that's kind of my personality. I'm very curious, and I get distracted a little bit, so I want to see and experience different things, but I also want to follow my curiosities, and I think that's what allows me to grow beyond a conventional approach of solving something to an out-of-the-box approach. Got its pluses and minuses. But I also think that it's not just me. I think we're entering a time when this old model of, you graduate and then you join a company and you're there for 30 years and you climb your way up the ladder, people aren't doing that anymore. Industry is changing, companies are dying, new players are coming up, and young people want to experience more. And so they're switching jobs and careers, and I don't believe anyone really has just one career anymore, but has multiple ones. And I think the best thing you can do is weave what you learn from those various careers to come up with a better solution.
Now, you spoke a lot about your experience specifically working with Malala, and for those of you who don't know, Malala is the 15-year-old Pakistani girl that was shot by the Taliban just for, demanding education. And miraculously, she survived to tell her story, and she's kind of become, well, of course, she was the youngest person to win the Nobel Peace Prize, but also she's kind of become the face of this movement to demand not only education for women, but just education as a whole. So I guess to start off, what are the major tactics and ideas that are used right now to block access to education of girls and women?
The main challenge, the main impediment to education isn't opposition. People want, by and large, people want their kids to have a better life than they did. And if education offers that, they want their kids to get educated. The challenge is most people don't have access to good schools. So the main impediment is lack of good schools, and that can be because of poverty, it can be because the government education system doesn't work, because the government is ineffective or unwilling. It can be because of a lack of trained teachers. But the main challenge is bringing schools to young people around the world, and not just schools that teach them basic reading and writing, but teach them skills that allow them to get jobs so that they can rise above poverty.
Now, what would some of those skills be?
130 million girls around the world are denied an education. For them, we need to be aspiring for the very best, but they're not even being taught how to read and write. So it goes all the way from primary schooling to secondary education to higher education. In countries in the Nordic democracies, you're guaranteed higher education. We don't even have that here in America. But really, everyone should have the right to all of those kinds of education. And if you're privileged to have a good education, it should empower you to be empathetic, to be creative, to be resilient, because the jobs of the future are going to look very different from the jobs of today. And so we need to be teaching young people different skills than what our schools currently teach.
Okay. And I mean, you said it during your talk, the U.S. educational system. And I think this is a known factor. It's a system that has failed a lot of its students. Educators are the ones that work with these students in our country day in and day out. What kind of advice would you have for educators that are working with students? And you talk a lot about inspiring people as well. I watched your TED Talk, and something that stood out that was mentioned in your TED Talk was that you have the power to influence anything about which you are truly passionate. Oftentimes, a lot of educators tend to lose that passion because the system is just not working, or it's such a failed system that sometimes educators kind of lose that passion. What kind of advice do you have for educators to, keep that passion, and to keep that passion going?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough working in these fields. Working at the front lines of bringing change is hard, and we need to create systems that enable educators to have the resources and the support that they need to show up for their students. And that's everything from resources and support groups to how we compensate teachers. And that is a shift that's vital if America is to continue to be the leader, the economic leader, and the leader of the free world. But I also think that education is not just in the hands of teachers anymore. Education is something that takes place in a lifelong way. And more and more of us are consuming our news, for example, from Facebook. Mm-hmm. So Facebook is now in the position of educating us on world events and shaping our opinions. And so you have, computer scientists and software engineers who are also in the position of being educators. The same is true for most of the devices that we use, and for the news that we see, and for the TV programs that we consume. These are all things that shape our opinions and our understanding of the world. And so I would encourage most people, if not all people, to see what they do through the lens of education. Mm-hmm. And what are the ideas that this puts out into the world. If you organize a conference, who do you put and who do you not put? That's a conscious exercise in educating in some ideas versus others. And I think if we all start to see whatever it is that we do through that lens, hopefully we'll create more educated, well-rounded citizens.
Okay. Now, for somebody that does have an idea or, a mission, as, it is the main focus of your, the company that you have, that you guys fund startups with a mission, what is the first step for someone who wants to make a difference in the world for others who have less of an advantage?
The first step is to show up. Everything else follows from that. I think sometimes we can be paralyzed by the dilemma of choice and where do I begin, and should I go there or should I go here? Or also, it's not the right time. We believe that, we have to get all these degrees to make a difference. But I think it begins by simply showing up, and ideally showing up in a way where you can continue to show up, which is why I say, start local, start in your neighborhood so that you don't just go once, but you're able to go every week until you start to really understand the problems and develop expertise and are able to help. Solving social challenges is hard, so we need to invest the time to educate ourselves and to learn how to make a real difference. But don't let that paralyze you. Choose an area, choose an issue, and take the first step. And you'll be surprised by the opportunities that come. It's kind of like if someone says, how do I learn yoga? And you're like, well, you take a yoga class, and then you'll, meet other people who like yoga, and you'll find some stuff on the internet and some videos, and you'll probably buy a book. It's very similar, right? How do I impact the homelessness issue locally? Well, you go to volunteer at a local shelter, and then you meet people who are homeless and you learn from them, and you research online and you read some books on the current state of the crisis, and so just show up, really. Now,
you said something key right there, pick an issue. What about if I'm somebody that just wants to do everything? What kind of advice would you have for somebody like that who's just so passionate about so many issues? But of course, sometimes you can't really solve all problems. So what would you recommend?
Well, there's nothing wrong with following your curiosities, right? And so pick one or pick three and go to the three. And then, you may pick homelessness and go to the homeless shelter. You may pick women's rights and go to a shelter for women. You may pick criminal justice reform. and volunteer in some sort of capacity. And then you may realize in those 3 situations, this one in this moment is the best experience because this is the organization that you're most excited by, and you really clicked with the manager there, and so you're going to keep going to that one. That doesn't mean that those other 2 fell away. It's just you tried those 3, you realized that the conditions where you could make the greatest impact were best in option number 2, and you decided to spend more time there, and you went deeper and deeper. And so you don't have to cross them off before you experience them. In fact, I think experiencing multiple things can allow you to learn and to draw upon those various fields of knowledge.
Right. So you made a mention about the summer camp that you hosted and that you put together. Can you describe what was it like to? I mean, also just thinking about it, some would say you inspired one of the youngest Nobel Peace Prize winner. That's something that not everybody is going to be able to say. But describe what was it like working with Malala in the camp with all the other participants as well, and I mean just teaching them about being active is like, what was that like?
Yeah, it was really moving. It really shaped me and moved me and broke my heart and lifted my spirit at the same time. I mean, these were girls. Malala was 12 at the time. The girls were from 11 to 16, and they were coming out of an area where they had experienced hell. And I expected them to be shaken, and all of them, each one of them, was defiant and strong and angry and ready to change the world. I still remember they came and they started speaking, and they spoke with so much passion and with so much fearlessness. I was taken aback. It was entirely different from what I had expected. I had expected girls who'd been broken, and instead I found girls who had come alive, who had, through everything they'd experienced, become the most powerful versions of themselves. And it really shaped my understanding of how to work with local change makers and local heroes, and that when you show up and empower those people, then you can take a step back. Definitely. And that's the best way to do it, because they're the ones who understand their communities, and they're going to stay, and they're going to fight, and they're going to be the ones people listen to and trust. And so you as an outsider just go and help, lift them a little bit, and then they take care of the rest. Nice.
I mean, all right, and then just to kind of bring it to an end, what's next for you? What do you hope, or what do you have planned to do next?
I have the privilege of investing in great entrepreneurs and helping them build their businesses. I haven't ruled out building more businesses myself. I'm on the lookout for an idea that can make an impact that I would be excited about and uniquely positioned to do. And so I hope to stumble upon that idea soon. And alongside that, we'll just keep supporting other great change makers like I always have, and investing in people who I believe deserve a seat at the table and don't have a seat at the table today, and using my voice and my platform to ensure that they do.
Wow, well, incredible work, Shiza. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. And again, on behalf of ASI, Beach Pride events, all of our student media, we couldn't thank you and be happier to have you here today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.